Okay, I guess we can get started, and we'll get. Is the microphone on? Yeah. Okay. I guess we can get started. So today, welcome. Hello. Let's get started. So, giving an introductory talk today is Eva, and Eva's on my right. And Eva started seriously practicing Zen in 2023, taking 5 precepts in 2024. Her role at PZC is to help with marketing and social media, but you can most reliably find her watering plants and coming up with too many ideas. Lord knows that happens. And Eva grew up in Poland, but spent most of her adult life in Boston before moving to Rhode Island in 2023. She works as a user experience consultant, helping make technologies easier for people to use, and also serves as a program chair and faculty at Brandeis University's User Center Design Program. In her spare time, she enjoys hiking with her dog, travel photography, and creative writing. And so she's going to do the introductory talk. And answering questions today is Rebecca Otte Rebecca?
You can pronounce it however you want.
Okay. Rebecca Otte. Jito Pope's name, began studying Zen at the Kansas Zen Center in 1995. She co-founded the Zen Center, and where is that Zen Center?
In Topeka.
Okay, but what is the name of that Zen Center?
Prairyerth.
Prairyerth. It's not spelt that way. So she founded at Prairyerth Zen Center in 1997, is currently the abbott. She began studying with Zen Master Ji Haeng in 2013 and took Bodhisattva precepts in 2015. She received inka in December of 2020. She was a nurse-midwife retiring in 2017. She has 2 sons, a daughter-in-law, and a grandson. She lives with a husband and 2 cats in Topeka, Kansas. And so she's also up here at the monastery sitting for the week. And of course, we'll talk more about in the talk. I suppose you can talk a little bit more about sitting. So she's going to answer questions. So the best thing to do if you want to have a fairly interesting Dharma talk, please ask questions. Okay? Thank you.
So hi, everybody. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about my experience of meditation, since we've had so many new people and young people. So I'm going to start with a story that I kind of heard other people tell as well, of like the first time that I came to this school. And actually I came to Cambridge Zen Center with a friend, and it was over 20 years ago. So my friend and I came to the Dharma talk, and we had orientation. I think it was just like us and maybe a couple other people. And then the person leading the orientation, she had us do like a mini meditation, like, 5 minutes. And then we kind of talked about it. And I've actually talked with my friend about this since I've come back. And it's really interesting what I remember and what she remembers. So what I remember is that, I just kind of sat there, and then it was like, oh, my leg hurts, like nothing's going on here, nothing's happening. And then when my friend, talked about it, she said, I just sat here, and then, I imagine these birds, and, all this crazy stuff happened, and it was amazing. It was just the best thing ever. And what she remembers is that the person leading the orientation was kind of like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're doing it wrong. And what I remember is thinking how come I can't be like my friend? How come I can't just like have this, psychedelic experience just by sitting there silently? So that's how it was. And then we went to the Dharma talk, and I remember liking it, and then I didn't go back, and I didn't come back until less than 2 years ago. I remember when I first started coming, like 25 minutes of meditation, of just sitting there, that just seemed like such a really long time. Like, how am I going to do this? And then they have these retreats, and it's like all day. Like, I just can't imagine, like, how am I going to get through this? And funny enough, it's very quickly, it just kind of becomes not a big deal. But, despite that, if I think about kind of rationally or objectively, am I a good meditator? I would say absolutely not. Half the time I'm sitting there and, my mind is just coming up with some idea and how I'm going to make it happen, or, I have a problem in my life, and I'm like thinking about this problem. And invariably, the retreats I've sat, I feel like the teachers will always bring up candy. They'll be like, oh yeah, something is like candy or like cake. And then I spent 20 minutes thinking about, on the way home, I should really reward myself. Like, where am I going to go and get, a cupcake? I think I really deserve it, blah, 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 blah. So, objectively, I feel like I'm a terrible meditator. But at the same time, I've realized over time that I used to do all these things all the time, and I just never noticed. I just kind of thought that's how it was. If you have a problem, you think about it until you solve it. But it's only when you start paying attention that you realize that a lot of time you actually don't have very much control over a problem, and just thinking about it does absolutely nothing. And even though, this still happens to me, there are definitely moments when I'll be sitting and then I'll think, oh wait, I got it, I think I'm getting it, I got it. And of course, as soon as you think that, it's gone. And the other thing that I noticed happening, and I think it happened pretty quickly after I started coming here, I would be driving somewhere, and I remember the first time it happened, I was just kind of starting to get this feeling, and I was like, this is just a weird feeling. And I thought, am I like sick? Am I tired? What's going on here? And then I thought, I think this is inner peace. I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't remember the last time I felt this way. Like, what is this saying about me, And then, like, I would get this feeling once in a while, and then I got stressed out with something, and then it stopped happening, and then it kind of came back. And I think, that's kind of how Zen is, like, you don't expect to be happy all the time, you don't expect to be peaceful all the time. But if you start paying attention to your mind, you will notice that things start happening differently. And you begin to feel like you have, it's not that you have control over your thoughts or emotions, but you can you just begin to naturally change in a certain positive direction. So the other thing that I was thinking about is just kind of, why come here and do this? What kind of seems, like a pointless thing. You're coming here and you're just sitting there and you're staring at the floor. Like, why not do something that's more productive? It actually reminded me of something that I teach in a class at Brandeis. So what I teach is basically kind of applied cognitive psychology. And there's a couple principles that we talk about. One of them is called Hicks' Law. And it basically states that the more choices you have, the longer it takes you to make a choice. And then there is the paradox of choice, which states that the more choices you have, the less satisfied you end up being with your choice. And I think you can kind of think about, your own life, where, we're bombarded with information 24/7. We can, go and scroll on 5 different social networks. We can, read about what's happening, in politics, and we can kind of think about, like what is the right thing to do. And a lot of time, I think we feel out of control in terms of what we actually end up choosing. So coming here and, just sitting there with yourself, in silence, it just restricts the choices, and it kind of removes that burden of having to make decisions constantly and feeling like you're not, you're not making the optimal decision, and there's always something else. There's always something else to do, something else to read, to see. So I think, that structure is very helpful, again, to just bring you back, like, what's actually going on inside my mind, what's actually, what's actually important to me. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is this idea of control. And when I think about my life, I think a lot about how in the past I've had this idea that I wanted to control the future, or control the course of events, especially if, it was something really important to me. And ultimately, you kind of realize that the things that you actually have control over are very, very tiny. So really what you say and what you do right now. And that's kind of it. You can kind of plan ahead a little bit. But if you think back to okay, I thought, I was going to have this conversation with someone or a meeting, and you start rehearsing kind of, well, I'll say this and this, and you sound really smart in your head, and you're really, you think I got this. And then you go and you have this meeting or conversation, and the person says something, and they never say what you thought they were going to say. And as soon as that happens, that's it. You're not prepared. You just have to respond to what's in front of you. So I really like this idea of, just right now. What are you doing? How are you responding to this situation? And it's, in some ways it feels restrictive or almost nihilistic. We're okay, you don't have any, no control except for this tiny, tiny moment in time. But on the other hand, you realize that actually your words and actions do matter. You do have influence and impact over other people. And instead of thinking about a million things that you could do, or you could say. You really just focus on this. So I wanted to end actually with a poem that I wrote about meditation. And this morning I was starting to chicken out, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So here it goes. Zen Master says, "Let your thoughts be like clouds. My thoughts are no clouds. An ambitious aviary vies for attention inside my head instead. More birds than Christmas days, blue jays and hawks and platypi flitting against my front lobe sky. I've no monkey mind, but an adorable lemur keeps swinging inside my third eye chakra. And as he swings and swings and swings, in an enchanting voice he sings, follow me down memory lane of all the bad things they've done to you. No time like the present, only now, just think of all the great things you'll do to spite them. There is no mantra that will disperse the menagerie inside my head. No matter how I hold my hands, my brain still makes the best laid plans. So whom should I ask? Whom should I ask for whom the dogs bark to be let inside? I fell off a bike when I was 5, bumped my neocortex, and now I'm ill-timed. A car hit my dog, and he was fine. So tell me, Zen Master, who's the smart one now?" Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. I loved your poem. I'm always looking for other words to explain Zen concepts. So I think lemur mind is a better, I like that. Instead of monkey mind, lemur mind. Yeah. So are there any questions?
Yeah,
Hey, Ty, hi.
Hey.
Good job.
Yeah, I have a question about how do you show compassion to somebody if you or that person have anger towards each other? How do you show compassion towards somebody?
Go back there. Yeah, so you can answer that question. Tell me, how would you show compassion to someone that you feel anger towards?
Just see them for who they are and give them grace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good start. What else?
Look at it from their point of view.
Maybe? Can you think of anything else?
No.
So let me just share with you, Ty, that the people that have driven me the craziest in my life have been the people that have taught me the greatest lessons about myself. So when you have that kind of anger towards someone, don't just point your finger at the other person, but turn your questioning and your light towards where is this anger coming from? Why anger, right? So the Buddha taught that anger, desire, and ignorance are the 3 poisons. And when we feel that kind of anger, it's usually because we're trying to protect this ego. So look at your own response to this person. Don't just point your finger at them. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So my question is related to taking the precepts. How do we know? Maybe we've been practicing for a while. Maybe we're feeling comfortable at the school or uncomfortable. Just how do we know when the right time is to take the precepts? And are there any wrong times to take the precepts? Like maybe not having the wrong idea about what to expect out of practice or about what, taking the precepts entails.
Have you taken precepts?
I have not, no.
Yeah. Are you thinking about it?
I am. I mean, I'm certainly interested.
Yeah. So why do you want to take precepts?
Well, it seems to me at least that taking the precepts would be like kind of a vocal commitment to the practice, as opposed to just kind of showing up, checking it out, which is kind of how I came to the school, just to see what was out there. Kind of like, I don't know, it seems like taking the precepts would be like, okay, this is what I want to do. It's sort of, this is how I want to practice.
Yeah.
Is that right?
You just answered your own question. That's wonderful.
Oh.
That taking 5 precepts in our school initially shows a deeper commitment, not just to the school, but to practice itself. You're committing to the Buddha way, right? And then maybe in 4 or 5 years, you'll want to become a Dharma teacher, and then you'll take 10 precepts. And then maybe a senior Dharma teacher, and you take 16 precepts. And then maybe a Bodhisattva teacher, and then you'll take 48 precepts. And that commitment just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, right? You don't have to take 48 precepts to deepen your commitment, but don't question it so hard, The precepts are just a wonderful way to live. Don't lie. Don't murder anybody. That's just basic human compassion for all things, right? Yeah. So take the precepts. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful questions.
Rebecca, could you just mention what these are?
This is a casa. If you take precepts, you get one of these. It's your present. Yeah. So this little casa, it looks like an apron, but it's sort of a symbol of the Buddha's robes. Right? In some Buddhist schools, they sew their own casa. So that's part of the commitment to practice. That's part of the commitment to, taking the precepts. Yeah, thank you. But it's really cool. Anybody who takes
So
precepts,
fashionable,
yeah. Anybody who takes precepts gets one of these. Yeah. Any other questions?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I have heard through several stories and have thought of this myself that there's a right way and a wrong way to meditate, right? And yet that very statement is putting a value on it when we're supposed to be in the moment, seeing things as they are. So how can there be good and bad, right and wrong, if we're in the moment?
What's your definition of bad meditation?
Well, I don't know, but I've heard several, right? So I don't know. Actually, the more I think about it, I think bad meditation is just not doing it. That's bad meditation, right? I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm thinking there is no such thing as bad meditation. Just the very act of doing it. And I love the idea that I can be doing meditation, for example, as I'm standing here, and not necessarily on a cushion, all quiet.
Yeah, wonderful.
I kind of like the idea of anytime you try to simplify what you're doing into its very essence is a form of meditation.
Okay. So, what is the purpose of meditation? What is the purpose of Zen meditation? That's sort of really at the heart of what all that conversation is about good and bad meditation, and meditation that's ubiquitous, that follows you in your life, right? So, the purpose of meditation is to actually discover your own true nature. So we have this karma. You know, I've always thought of karma, well, karma is causes and conditions, you know, cause and effect. Something happens and there's a cause and then you get an effect, right? And so we have this karma even from the time that we're babies, right? Even maybe pre-birth, this karma develops. It used to be really interesting to me because I was a nurse-midwife. When people would come in, women would come in for their appointments, and you could almost tell the personality of the baby already, because some babies are like, yeah, and and other babies are very quiet and move just calmly, right? Yeah, so we have this karma, this basic sort of personality, this basic way of seeing the world, right? I was born with musical karma. So I learned how to play the piano very young, and I sang very young, and you know, that was part, right from the get-go, that was a part of my life, was this musical karma. Where did that come from? I don't know. But the true essence of all of us is this wide open, compassionate action, this wide open way of being. And all of this stuff, the anger that Ty feels, the people who are thinking bad meditation, the desires we all have, all of that obscures that wide open Buddha nature. That's our true gift. And that's the purpose of meditation. I had a teacher one time that says, karma is really sticky stuff. But when you meditate, right, you're not making any more karma. And then you can really begin to see your karma. You begin to see how you operate in the world. You have to notice that, right? Meditation allows us to slow down enough to actually see it, to see what we're doing, to see what we're thinking. That's why, you know, people worry about monkey mind, but monkey mind is actually not a bad thing if you're noticing it, right? Eva said that perfectly. You have to notice it. Now, where did that come from? Where did that thought come from? Is that the story I'm telling myself all the time? Right? We all tell that. We all have that narrative in our head. We all tell stories in our head about who we are and what we should be or what we shouldn't be, or you know, what that person should be and shouldn't be, right? We all have these biases and opinions and thoughts, and we never question it. We always see it as truth until one day we actually notice it. And then we're like, wow, where did that come from? And then the next question is, what's behind it? So here's this curtain of karma, this curtain of thoughts. And if we pull back that curtain a little bit, there it is. Just this wide open, spacious being. And we all share that. In our school, we call it don't know mind. Don't know. Or primary point is another, that's our school magazine. Dae-Sun used to call that wide open spaciousness, primary point. So when you're meditating and all those thoughts are going through your head, don't worry about it. Pay attention to it. Look at it. And then look at the spaces in between those thoughts. I wanted to also address something that you said about even meditating while you're standing there. Yeah. I've only done the whole 100-day Kilche once, but when I got home from Kilche, I realized as I was driving one morning that I was still doing my Wato practice. Right? I was still doing it even while I was driving. And it was then that I realized practice follows us everywhere. We can continue to do that. And it helps, it helps to keep that don't know mind, that wide open don't know mind. I also wanted to address something you said about control, because we don't have control over anything, actually. You never know what's going to happen 1 second to the next. One of the Zen masters in our school was giving an interview to a 13-year-old girl and killed over dead. Just like that. Had a heart attack, died. You never know what will happen. That could happen to me right now as I'm talking. So we really don't have a lot of control. In this political climate right now, and all of the angst that's in and around it, keeping that don't know mind moment to moment, because you don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know. Was there somebody online that wanted to say something? Yeah.
Good morning. I was reading, I've been reading the manual out there, there's a book that tells you, and what, I guess it doesn't confuse me, but there's so many rituals involved, so many, folding the robe a certain way, even taking precepts. If I say to myself, I'm going to follow the precepts, why isn't that enough? And what is the advantage to my practice of adding all these rituals to it?
That's a great question. I just did a whole class for our online sangha on ritual, and reading about it was really enlightening for me. Connecting with that don't know mind, connecting with that Buddha nature is a little bit of a mystery, isn't it? Yeah. One of the things that ritual does for us is helps us to connect to that. So one of the things that I've been advocating for is when they open the altar, when the Moktak master opens the altar for chanting, is to have everyone be seated and silent first, and then being open participants in that opening the altar. Because that's the way that we begin to silence our hearts and our minds. That's the way that we begin to connect to that don't know mind, is through ritual. And if you pay attention, we have little rituals all day long. Experiment at home. I don't know if you have a home practice. Yeah. So experiment a little bit with it. So try just sitting down on your cushion and just meditating without doing anything. And then, maybe after doing that a few times, then light a piece of incense and light candles and bow towards it and then sit down. Right? And see if that makes a difference in your practice. See if that helps you to connect more to that don't know mind. Yeah, it's really interesting. There's actually a whole study about ritual and how that changes our society. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey,
Hey, Ty.
I'm not really familiar with all the precepts, but I don't know. What do you do when you struggle to follow the precepts, or is there no struggle for you personally?
There's always a struggle to follow precepts, right? I get angry. I tell white lies. I know. Hey, I really like that dress you have on. Oh, you look really pretty today. Yeah. We all do that, don't we? Yeah. It's always a bit of a struggle because what's right and what we desire sometimes fight. Yeah. So following those precepts is always doing the right thing. Let me add something to that, though, for you, Ty. In our school, we say, know when the precepts are open and when they are closed. So know when it's appropriate to lie to somebody and know when it's inappropriate to lie to somebody. And one of the stories we tell in our precept ceremony is you are standing at a crossroads and a rabbit comes by and heads off down one path. And a hunter comes by a few minutes later and it says, which way did the rabbit go? And if you tell the hunter that the rabbit went that way, the hunter will kill the rabbit. You will have been involved in the killing of a sentient being. But if you don't tell the hunter, then you lie and you save the rabbit's life. You know? Sometimes precepts are like that. As you practice, your wisdom will grow up. And then you'll be able to use the precepts in a way that helps all beings. You can use them as compassionate action, right? If they're open or they're closed. So if I tell someone they're looking very pretty today, and maybe it's not entirely true, but maybe that's just the little confidence boost they need to get through the day, right? Yeah. It's like that. Just try. Just try. Don't worry about whether you can keep them or not keep them, but as you get to each situation, that's all we do. We try and then we fail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, thank you.
And then we get up and we try again.
Yeah.
And then we fail. What's the, I forget the, it's fall down 7 times, get up 8. Is that it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Ty. I just told her that there was no such thing as failure. Apparently I lied. Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Your example of the rabbit and the hunter is interesting to me. Because if I bring don't know mind to this, I don't necessarily know what will happen if I answer that question. Maybe the hunter has a starving family at home.
That's right.
Who needs this rabbit? And now I get lost in thinking mind. And this can be paralyzing, because that's one choice, is to not answer. Are there other ways to think about this? Should I stop thinking about it?
You know, you could think of all the different scenarios you want to. But what are you going to do when you walk out the door and you meet that hunter and that rabbit? That's where you have to pay attention in each moment. It's not, you know, sitting on your cushion and thinking that all through is kind of like, why bother? But letting that precept rest on your heart and knowing that compassionate action is really what we're about. You know, it's doing Zen meditation is about, stripping away this self-referential way of working in the world so that we can be present and compassionate to other people. That's the whole purpose of this. Zen Master Sun says, first get enlightenment, then save all beings. Right? Yeah. So, you can think about it if you want to, but really, when you go out there in the world, that's the hard part.
Do the best with a pure heart as best you can.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
My question, I guess, is about comfort and discomfort, and I don't necessarily mean, it could mean pain or something when you're sitting, but also just getting comfortable with discomfort and like stepping out of your comfort zone and those type of things. Any tips on, how to kind of do that using the practice in any way that you've experienced or you've seen others experience?
Can you give me an example? Where have you had to be uncomfortable?
Well, I mean, personally, like in my job, like for many years, I had like imposter syndrome. Like, okay, like I don't know anything, and you're asking me all these questions, and you're saying I'm the expert, and I'm like, I'm not an expert at this, but it's like I have this job title, whatever. I've since grown out of that, but that would be like an example of that, where like you just don't feel comfortable in the situation and people expect you to kind of are looking to you for that, or that you're capable of something, but you're like, but what will happen if I fail? Like, to your point, like, you have a talent or something and you don't capitalize on that, and you just are like, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, because if I fail, that would be worse than trying, type of a thing.
So what you're really talking about is fear.
Yeah.
This mind that has some kind of an idea about what will happen if I fail. And in that sense, I guess there really isn't failure, right? You just try. So I'm sitting up in the monastery for this next week. That's something you should do. I'll bet that's out of your comfort zone, isn't it?
It would,
yeah.
Yes.
So I got up at 4:10 this morning, and we did bows and chanting and sitting before breakfast. Right? That's getting out of your comfort zone when you do that. Because when I'm at home, it's really nice if I can just lay in bed. It's really nice. And there's always that niggling little thing in your head that says, oh, you don't have to get out of bed this morning. Yeah, you don't have to do that. Just lay there. It's so warm and comfortable, right? You just have to do it. You just have to do it. Believe it or not, I'm a little bit shy. And even though I'm the guiding teacher for Prairyerth Zen Center, one of the things that I've had difficulty with is putting my own talks online and, that kind of thing. But my son gets on TikTok, and he's always on video, posting stuff on TikTok. So I asked him one time, I said, how do you get over that? And he says, oh, Mom, just shut up and do it. Yeah, really looking at that fear. What is that about? What is fear? It's protecting that ego. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's protecting this little self that wants everybody to like them, wants everybody to think they're wonderful, right? You're just protecting that, right? Once you start seeing that, you can kind of let go of that fear just a little bit. Yeah. Maybe baby steps, you know? Come sit a retreat, a one-day retreat, and then a 2-day retreat, and then a 7-day retreat, and then maybe a 100-day retreat up at the monastery. Yeah, and that'll teach you something about stepping out of your comfort zone. Yeah.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I understand that imposter syndrome too. You know, after a while, delivering babies got to be so easy for me. You know, and I was like, anybody can do this. What am I? You know, I'm not special. Anybody can do this. It's easy, right? Yeah. You just sort of dismiss all the really work you had to do to get there. Yeah. All right. Anything else? We're out of time. Okay. Well, thank you all for listening, and thank you all for being here. It's just a wonderful group, and I hope you all continue practicing. I hope you all continue coming to the Zen Center and supporting it. I've been practicing for 30-some years, and I've never found the depths of it yet. You know, it's just a wonderful practice, and it's been life-changing, and it's definitely worth you putting your time and attention into. So thank you all.
Should I go up? All right, so thanks everybody for coming. Just a few announcements. If you have been inspired, you can sit a one-day retreat this next Saturday. This is a joint retreat with the Full Moon Sangha, which is a Japanese Soto Zen Sangha. So it's mostly sitting, but then at the end we do chanting from both traditions, so you can kind of see the differences between the two. And that's actually offered in person and online. We also have a couple of other retreats that are taking place in May that are now open to registration. One is a 2-day retreat, a YMJJ, and one is an art as practice retreat. So if you are an artist or a craftsman, you can register for that. What else? Of course, we have Kilche going on at the monastery, and the last 2 weeks is going to be the head teacher of Quantum Zen, which is the global school that we're a part of. And for that, you do need some previous retreat experience. So if you sat the one day, then you can sit the whole week. Speaking of precepts, I think that the deadline for taking 5 precepts hasn't passed yet. So the ceremony is going to be in, I think it's April 6th, Saturday. And to take precepts, you have to sit 4 days of retreat, and it can be any kind of retreat. And you can find that information on the Quantum America's website. We, of course, have our usual practice, so if you want to come back, you can come back Wednesday. On Thursday, there is West Side Zen, which is in Providence and online. We have, actually this Tuesday, we have online practice with Zen Master Tangong, who is our co-guiding teacher, and you can find all that information on the website. Last but not least, the gift shop is going to be open. We'll have some, I think I saw some cupcakes out there actually, or some kind of other goodies, speaking of sweets. And we are also going to be organizing the gift shop inventory this afternoon. So if you want to volunteer and help with that, just meet us there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.